1. Hey everyone, it's another week for us here. What's good? As you can see, it's just there's two of us. There's always only the two of us here because Eric looks like he's out for the evening. I think he might have a Brazilian wax appointment or something. I don't know. But he hit me up. He said he had something going on. No problem. We have Miss Joelle Gautier from a couple episodes ago. If you guys remember, and hit it in a second here as soon as this starts. Great. All right. In 3, 2, 1. Hey everyone, it's another week for us here. What's good? As you can see, it's just there's two of us. There's always only the two of us here because Eric looks like he's out for the evening. I think he might have a Brazilian wax appointment or something. I don't know. But he hit me up. He said he had something going on. No problem. We have Miss Joelle Gautier from a couple episodes ago. If you guys remember, if you haven't taken a look at that, I think that was episode 8, I believe. So I will link that here on the video itself. If you guys want to take a look at that, she had some really great analysis and insights on the topics that we were talking about there, especially from the woman's point of view, because we are very, there's been a lot of males on this podcast so far, the short-lived podcast that we've had. But hi, Joelle, how you doing?
Good. It's good to see you. How you been?
I'm good. We're good. We just came off a very funny episode last week with Mr. Dennis Barcelone. Did you get to see it? He's such a character. Yeah. I would definitely, if you haven't seen that one yet, too. That was our 10th episode. Very, very fun. Dude is funny. Again, if you missed that one, you can always catch his comedy at, I think it's at XL since 2003, and I'll list that here on the screen also. But Joelle, you just got back from town.
Yes,
you had a little trip.
Yeah, I went to Vegas.
You were telling me a little bit about it. I haven't been hip to the whole thing, so you got to school me a little bit and drop some knowledge here and what you did over the weekend.
So I went to Vegas, and it was the weekend for the first time they had the Formula One racing since 1970. So they closed. Oh, wow. Yeah, so they closed the strip, and it was only at night, so it was nice. And I live in Seattle, so it's cold. We're 40 degrees already over here. So when I went over there, it was like 70. It was sunny, and people had jackets. And I'm like, wow, this is summer for me. It was great, and it was at night, so like not too much sun, and just also they had cleared out all the homeless people. That's something I always find interesting. So it's really much cleaner, and it was great. I mean, it was great.
You didn't tell me about that part. Well, I mean, I would assume they would want to clear out some streets if they're racing. You don't want anyone
when they close down
crossing.
Yeah, and just having so many people come in from out of town, they want to kind of like make way because it was on the main strip, so you could be walking on the strip and it's racing right next to you. So it was for everybody, but it was a different experience going now because I went for the experience this time of like that, and also my birthday's coming up, so that was fun. But compared to going when I was in my 20s, it was different. So I definitely it's nice to take advantage of the food and the scenery and the experiences. So it was different.
So that type of event. That's so foreign to me. So what do they do? Laps? What do they do? And
they do.
How do you watch it?
So I only watched it the first day because actually this trip was very last minute. And the first day was like the first time ever that they go on the track, right? So they do the best they can. And these things go 200 miles and
Yeah.
200 to 220, and they build up per lap. So the first day wasn't the actual race, it was just practice. So
Okay.
I
On the
I get
strip.
there on the strip at like
God.
9 p.m., right? So I'm like there, I'm watching, and we're like watching them go, like maybe about an hour or less, like 30 minutes or something like that. Then what happens is the road, you have to remember, is brand new. Like
Mm-hmm.
part of it is brand new because they had to build it for the racing.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're going 200 miles an hour, you're basically levitating. So anything, right? Like if you're going too fast on the bike, like
Oh
little
yeah.
rock can hit you, you're out. So a manhole came up, just like
What?
open. Yes. So the car, the car was racing on it, and it hit the manhole, and then just busted the whole bottom of the car, and then it had to be towed back.
Oh shit.
So
Okay.
that was like I said, 30 minutes in, and they're like, FIA is not gonna let anyone else practice. So these guys don't
Holy crap.
lose this whole time of practice. Like there's, because now it's not just like, it could just, if the car had a problem, the car would be out. They would continue racing, but this is pretty predictable if you think about it realistically. It's a brand new road. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know, when you're going that fast on that, like, because it's a brand new track. So that was interesting. So we only saw about 30 minutes and they kicked us out.
Huh.
They were like, okay, we're done.
Did you get a lot of footage?
I did, but yeah, I did get a lot of footage, but my
Yeah.
footage is very, it was minimal because I only got 30 minutes of watching it for one. And
Plus,
also
it's hard to
like,
kind of just.
yeah,
How are you going to
yeah.
capture this thing?
Well,
Yeah.
slow motion.
You
That's what
got
I
okay.
did.
Some slow mo
Everything in
footage.
slow
Okay.
motion. So, because slow motion always hits, and with that, it's just easier. I actually slow motion everything I record because it's easier and people look better doing slow motion. Dave Chappelle said it. So,
Mm. Okay. Okay. So that's very cool. And you've always been into that. If you guys don't know, Joelle's from France. I don't know. I'm not sure what age you came over, but you're going back and forth. I think you had mentioned that you do some trips back and forth regularly, just to get out of
yeah.
the cold weather over in Washington, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I try to. Well, since pandemic happened, going back to Guadeloupe right now is extremely expensive. You're looking like 4, 6 thousand. So,
How long is that flight? So Guadeloupe, you had mentioned to me that's a little bit north of Martinique
hmm
and Dominica, I believe.
yeah,
Yeah,
Dominican Republic. They are. So it's we would usually go from here up to the east side. So that's 6 hours, and then you do another 4 hours or
they're
3 hours
straight
or something
down.
like that.
Okay, that's not
Yeah, straight
horrible, I
down.
guess.
It's not like Vietnam. Like Vietnam is 16 hours, and it's 9 hours and then 6 hours after, and it's brutal.
That's yeah, that is so hard on your body. I've got some a group of friends that's over in Laos and Thailand. Their daughter um, got married over there. Beautiful wedding. I saw the pictures that they had posted online. They're definitely staying a long enough time to where it makes it worth it. But at the same time, once you stay a fairly long time over there, let's say anything over a couple weeks, your body then starts getting so accustomed to that,
Oh yeah.
especially if you don't really have a lot to wake up to the next morning other than just breakfast. And you're sitting there, your body's just like, you know what, we're just going to do whatever it is as far
hmm
as there's no alarm clock. When they
hmm
get back over here, oh, good God.
Yeah, what's funny is I was thinking, we talk about time travel and going back in time and stuff, right? I
Hmm.
don't realistically think that's possible because we go back in time just a little bit, just 4 hours, and our body completely shuts down. We'd probably be
Yeah.
sleeping for like years. You know what I mean?
Just
Like,
the constant back and forth and having to readjust.
because jet lag is not something you can stop. Like, you can't
Uh-huh.
just coffee it up. You can't. It just, unless you do it all the time and it's terrible for your body. If
Hmm.
you don't go, when you do it, it really, like, your body gets really effed up. It's really bad.
Hmm.
So um for me, I'm like, that's only 4 hours back in time. I can't imagine if we
That's
went
that's
years.
definitely something that I personally like, when you're thinking about like, yeah, if it could exist and everything, but even if it did exist, right? I don't know if anyone had if anyone accounted for the fact of jet lag for time travel. And you're just bringing that up to where it's
Exactly.
like, what is it, the circadian rhythm, or like the way that your body has the alarm clock? um
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that factor. It's like, oh, nah, not possible. Either that,
Yeah.
if it is possible, you'll be asleep trying to
Y-
catch up for months,
Yeah. They're
just
like,
trying to catch up
you'd
to
go
your jet
back
lag.
like
Oh, that's
a
crazy.
year and you would have to sleep 6 months.
Worth it? I don't know. Hmm. Save John F. Kennedy and then sleep for about 6 months. Okay.
Right?
I don't know. That's wild.
So much to do. I mean, like, would you do that or would you start your own Google? I mean, there's so many things you can do
I
if you go
know. I
far
know.
enough.
There was this one thing on there. It was trending for a little bit. I was like, okay, if you can go back in the past and tell the 18-year-old you 3 words, what would you tell them? And people are just like, Apple, Google, Boeing, or something like that. They're just or invest in X. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, maybe. What would you tell yourself? I actually told I was telling myself in the head. I was like, yeah, Amazon, Apple, Google. But then my 18-year-old self would be like, what the hell is that? That guy's crazy. I would need to squeeze in invest, something like that in
Yeah.
it.
If I
I
was to
just
tell my 18-year-old self, knowing what I was doing at 18,
uh
I would tell myself to keep going because I actually
just
was
keep going.
into,
Oh,
because I was, at like really young, I like got my resume together and a portfolio and I became a web designer at like 17, right, for post
uh-huh.
profile. And
Geez, we're fast.
it
Wow.
was a thing. But the thing is, I had made it up myself because I was at home learning on my own. So like I just kind of just went with it. And by the time they hired me and didn't realize I didn't have a degree, I was like, I'm underpaid anyways. So
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
and then by the time I got that, I was like, oh, I don't have I don't need college now. I have the resume to the present it.
yeah,
So but then things happened where it wasn't the typical family thing to do. And my parents raised us
yeah.
having nail shops and stuff. So like focus had to be on that. And Joelle's fantastic mind
Oh my
wasn't
god.
like a
How
thing, right?
horrible is that? No,
To
you
think,
can't
yeah.
have this
Well, it's not like they
very
ever did that. They never were like, you can't be a web designer or a computer science
because
major. It was more like, oh, you're doing that. Hmm. And
it's
then
kind
you're like, well, we're over here working every day as a
we're
family at the
here.
shop here while you do your dreams.
What is it?
At
Web
Yeah,
design? What is that?
yes, yeah.
Oh my
Turn the
goodness.
computer on and off, waste time on the TV, like whatever it
Oh
was.
my goodness.
And so I'd never at that age I didn't take it as seriously as I should
Mm-hmm.
have because but I was already, but now the funny thing is when I have picked it back up and I'm able to code again and I'm able to do the
Yeah.
things I want to, but now there's like this rat race that was not there when I
Yeah.
started. So that's why at 18, that is what I would have said. I would have like,
You would have
you
been so
are at
far
the
ahead.
start. You're at the start of the race right now. Just keep fucking going and you're fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So keep going, not stay away, Jim, or
Yeah.
or Ronald Bad Boy, or
Yeah.
whoever the ex-boyfriend was.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
none of that.
Well, no,
I
that's
was a
very yeah,
tomboy.
no,
I
that's
worked on
solid.
cars. So like for me, men,
Yeah.
dudes were like my friends and my guys. So like had no problem dissing them.
Mm. Well, it's interesting that, and that does segue to what I think we were like, well, we can
Right.
talk about when E's out, and I think one of the things that we had mentioned, it was a side topic, which was Asian, like toxic Asian traits,
Mm-hmm.
and I think for me,
Right.
it was like more toxic Filipino traits. I mean, there's been a
Mm-hmm.
few episodes and other podcasts out there and other content creators they talk about it, and I heard. And it came up in an episode a while back, and I was like, that's something to talk about from my own personal experience here and there. For you, I didn't even know you weren't Filipino until we were talking a little earlier. I thought you had something. I don't know what made me believe that, but I think it is just you definitely that mix Vietnamese and Guadeloupe. Is it Guadeloupean or
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Guadeloupe? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that mix itself makes you look. You look very Filipino. So
Yeah.
we were talking about like the I guess it would be good to talk about the kind of the differences because I don't know what the toxic Vietnamese traits would be like as a whole. There could be toxic, there was this ranking before that I saw. There's content creator had put something out. There's like they ranked the toxic men, most toxic Asian men. They actually ranked Filipinos as number one, like the
Oh
highest toxic.
no,
And I was like, are you serious? We're that bad? I was like, oh, okay, somebody hurt you, but I'm interested, like, Vietnamese toxic traits, and then I'll share some of the stuff that that we get, the
for
Filipino
sure.
toxic traits.
Yeah, so I was raised with a Vietnamese mom, and I mean, my dad was also in the culture too, so I was very Vietnamese. I speak it, and I was able to, live in it. But after a while, in my 30s, I learned my other mix, which is Guadalupean, and that's where I saw a contrast. Because at first, like fish doesn't know it's in water. That's how it was. It's like you're just like in the culture, you're used to it. That's just how things are.
Hmm.
And I started to realize things, right? Like I started to realize like when the I would see my Vietnamese side like kind of fight to pay, and it's like a running joke that Vietnamese people will always fight to pay, and it's or like I mean, it gets so bad where people will sometimes even pay before you are done eating. Like they'll go and find a way, like, oh, I'm going to the bathroom, and then they go sneak off, and and you're like, oh my god, I have to make sure I go pay my piece. And it was funny at first, but then I started to think about it. I was like, I think this is, it's definitely stems from not all, but some, or the ones I hang out with at least. And might be because we are all like minded in that same kind of
Hmm.
culture trauma that they um they do it to, it's a conditional love thing. It's like you just have to always present yourself, as something in comparison, right? When I went to my Guadalupean side, and it's like we're hurrying it up and we're like, oh yeah, we're gonna pay and stuff, and they're just looking at us like, what are you doing and why are
Yeah,
you doing
yeah.
that? And I was like, wait, what? And I'm sitting there like, wait, how do we show off, basically, because like
It
we
kind of
are, yeah. And it's bad, but then at the same time you realize that you're like, oh, these people don't care, and I'm making a fuss about it. And then the other side, it's kind of like a normal thing. So
no, I
yeah.
can definitely vouch for that because specifically that this has happened is when I with some a couple of Vietnamese friends. One, it was one of those things where I went there as to like, okay, how do we want to split this? Bring this stuff out, and then the guy's already coming back with the actual, check
Paid bill. Hmm.
that's already paid. And I was like, when did this happen? It's like, oh, they dropped it off as soon as you guys got in. They actually were here before you, and they dropped off the checks and just go ahead and taken care of. And it was such an odd. It's like for me, it's hard for me to even take a free meal sometimes.
Hmm.
I think that is also something from from my upbringing to where I feel like I have this. It might just be me personally. I might just be messed up, but then I always feel like there's this chip on my shoulder to where it's like, no, I can pay, or I want to pay my
Hmm.
fair share and
Hmm.
everything. And
Hmm.
it felt so awkward that it was already done, and it's like, here, let me get you something. Here, you want some
Hmm.
you want some bubble tea? You want some, like, let me
Yep.
pay it back. But in
Yep.
and the other time it was like that also. It was just, and there was also a refusal to even split it. So you're saying
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
totally normal in the Vietnamese
Hmm.
culture. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that
And
explains
you,
it.
yes.
Would I be wrong to almost expect it? Like to where it's like, hey, we're done eating. What are you still doing sitting down?
Yeah, pretty much. The ones that don't hang out with Vietnamese people all the time, because this is such a Vietnamese thing,
Hmm.
when you see Vietnamese people hang out with non-Vietnamese people, they're not payers. They have lost that trait. But I guarantee you, if they are around their Vietnamese people, that's how they are. Like they're true close
Hmm.
people. Because Vietnamese people don't do that. They also, they're very tight knit. There's always a crew of Vietnamese people.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
you don't see one Vietnamese person with all sorts of races all the time. So
I, I, I'm trying to find. I think that's almost a positive side to where you feel like you can, you can step up at that level. But I guess the negative side on that is if you really are like, how would you be viewed if you were never the one to step up first? Would that be the bad side of it, to where it's like, hey, Raymond's never pulling hit, he's never
They
reaching
would
for his
start
pocket.
to they would start to probably, like me personally, if somebody was in the crew and they're not paying,
Uh,
you kind of start to worry at first, like, hey, what's your situation? you know,
okay.
because everybody's always showing off. So like I'm a finance manager at Lamborghini. I'm doing this. I've got my shops. I've got my
Hmm.
cars. You're
Hmm.
always growing. That's all you talk about. So if someone's not talking about theirs and they're not paying, you're kind of,
Hmm.
so that situation actually wouldn't happen because that's how
So
you get
there'd be more
close.
concern than ridicule, right? Or like, would there be bad mouthing or,
They
but
wouldn't even
would,
make it in the crew, to be honest,
oh,
because
oh,
and
okay.
they to make it in the crew, you're gonna have to have fought yourself to pay the bill at one point.
Interesting.
Does that
Interesting.
make sense? Like you're
Yeah.
new to the crew, so then you came, that you this is so bad, but yeah, that's what really happens. You think about it is they to prove yourself, you have to find a way to pay the bill at one point. So that's why you'll see all these Vietnamese dudes will go out drinking, right?
Okay.
They'll drink and eat and shit, and then one guy will pay the whole bill. But that guy wants to make sure that that's his name, and then next time the next guy's gonna do the same thing. But
Interesting.
yeah, yeah, it's
Okay.
terrible.
This is very eye-opening for me, because two of my better friends, I would consider very good friends, are Vietnamese, and I've seen, and also my brother-in-law is Vietnamese, and I actually can see those traits, and I've always felt like, it's like, what is that? It's like, I couldn't connect, because it just, like you had said, I think when the family in Guadeloupe were
Hmm.
like, what are you trying to do, show off or something like that?
Hmm.
And unless there is some sort of an explanation or understanding that exists in that culture, you kind of would deem it to be, it was like, this guy's always trying to pick something up. But no,
Hmm.
I've never felt like that, towards
Hmm.
my brother-in-law and my other
Of
two
course.
really good friends. But at the same time, it's always felt uncomfortable and awkward, especially for me. There's like, I don't mind, splitting or even
Hmm.
paying for it. But
Hmm.
that's awesome. Okay, well, I wouldn't consider that toxic. Congratulations for your your Vietnamese community for always having each other's backs. But I wouldn't
It's
assume that
toxic
that's like,
success.
oh, okay. Mm,
We have
okay.
toxic success.
I need to
It's
make
like,
more Vietnamese friends.
yeah, we're
No,
very
that's
driven
awesome.
people, and you're always
No, that's
driving
awesome though.
somewhere.
That's
Yeah.
very cool. So so is there one that you would feel like, oh, this is a really bad trait as a whole? Because I know, so the Filipino side, there's a list. There's a pretty long list. There's one, the main one, that I think I see out there, other than, I think I had told you earlier, it's like Filipino time, or like, the being late. And I know it's like Filipino time, we call it, just because of being lateness and everything, or just a norm for us to be late, and it's, it's almost socially accepted in the community. Um, and of course, other nationalities and other races, um, also have that present in them. But then, in the Philippines, there's a lot of body shaming, and it's just more, it's more like in your face type of thing. It's like when a relative, when you hadn't seen them for a while, and they look at you, the first thing that they would point out is, it's something about your body. It's like, oh, if I just came back from, like, from Mexico or something like that, and I'm super dark, or it's like, oh, and then they're always like, oh my God, you're so dark. It's like, what is wrong with you? You're too dark. Or it's like, oh, or if I gained a little bit of weight, and it's like, okay, you're so fat now, or, you're, what's going on, and just start tapping you on your face, and you feel some sort of self-conscious. And then if you all of a sudden go on a diet, I remember I was chubby growing up, and then all of a sudden I started going on, I started b-boying and dancing, and I started losing a lot of weight. And my grandma would sit there and be like, you're so skinny. And all the aunties would be like, you're so skinny, you should eat more. I'm like, what do you guys want? It's like, what's the middle point? So there's always some sort of a body recognition, like always, like, calling it out there. And I know for some people, for me, I just, yeah, whatever, it is what it is. But for some people, that really gets to them, is,
Hmm.
if you really, it really scars you, traumatizes, especially. And I think there's, and a lot of the ladies, growing up. Of course, you want to be very careful about your stature and your weight and everything like that. And if somebody calls it out, just especially in family parties,
Mhm.
and that's the first thing that they call out on you. That's very, very toxic. Does that at all exist in the Vietnamese culture?
It does. It does, but I mean, I think it's just people. I don't, I think that, no, no, it's definitely, yeah, you're right. It's a culture thing. But for Vietnamese people, I'm a, I'm considered a UQ, which is somebody that lives in the States that is Vietnamese
Hmm.
cultured,
Hmm.
or their parents are from Vietnam, whatever. There's some people can actually have different meanings to that. But for me, it just means that I'm a like Vietnamese cultured person who lives in the U.S. And when I go there, um, being chubby or having fat means you're rich, because if
Hmm.
you're poor,
Hmm.
you're skinny. So they
Yeah.
don't, and also I don't, I'm tan and stuff. So for them, they don't really look at me as like, ew, she's fat, or like, why does she look like that? They're not as mean about it, but looking Filipino and being raised and being the way I am, I have been around a lot of Filipino families and
Hmm.
stuff, and I
Hmm.
do hear it. And I think it's very unfortunate that people will not recognize that that's a teenage girl, or they're going through their
Hmm.
awkward stage, or like things like that. I don't think you should really talk about people's body until they're like in their 30s, because like
Yeah.
your body changes from like in your teens and 20s, and you can't shame them for, or like, or whatever for it. I think it's unfortunate that people do that.
Yeah, it's there's not a lot of awareness in the previous generation to where they realize that that is something that could be harmful, or
Hmm.
to where, and if it is harmful to some sort of extent, or if you call it out,
Hmm.
um it's more viewed as, by them, it's like, oh, you're so sensitive, or this and that, or you're talking
Hmm.
back. um it is, I would care to say that it's more generational than anything, just because that's probably what they lived through and being
Even
called through the
us,
like.
even think about it, like we're in the borderline of like when things got sensitive. There was a time
Hmm.
where we didn't have trigger warnings, right? We didn't have like things like that, because there was no awareness to what it happens, to
Yeah.
people until now. So now I'm able to get over it because I know that they didn't know, but yeah, but unfortunately sometimes, especially people, like, not the US is very up to date with like trigger warning people and caring for people's traumas. But you go back to Asia and stuff, they don't
Oh yeah,
care.
no, there's
They don't
none.
care. They have none.
There's
There's
none.
Yeah, it's just like us back in like the early 2000s and the 1990s, it's just like that, where like you just sucked it up. There was no reason. You're a child, and yeah, so. Mhm.
In those generations, it's hard for them to even come to the table and understand, and even look at it as a clean slate of conversations around the sensitivities of your children, or
Mhm.
how you can come across. I think that, like you said, the US does a great job in actually putting it out there, just making sure that we're well aware of how everybody's feeling. Sometimes it's a little overboard to where it's like, okay,
Mhm.
we need to kind of scale it back. But for our parents, my parents, they've definitely, I guess, matured to that type of societal type of norm, right? And where they're a lot more open to it. It took my mom forever to say I love you. And so
Oh
that's
yeah.
another thing, with like another toxic trait. I think, would that be the same in the
Oh yeah, my mom.
Vietnamese culture?
Yeah. Well, and not all. I've seen some say "I love
Yeah,
you," seen
yeah.
some, but my parents have never. We don't hug. Even my sisters and I, when we hang out, we have a lot of close friends. So we'll, at the end of a meet, you hug. I
Hmm.
skip
Hmm.
my sister. I don't hug her, and
Hmm.
I don't know. We've
Why do you think
never.
that is? I
Mm-hmm.
like I have, like, there was a point where it was more like a true effort to be like, before I leave, I'm gonna hug them, and I was like, because I've always wanted to. I don't think any
Mm-hmm.
kid doesn't want to hug their parents and even
Mm-hmm.
their siblings. But then there was this effort to where it's like, It's gonna be weird because we've never really hugged, but I'm gonna give
Why is
you
it
know,
weird, right?
it's
Yeah, we
right,
don't.
right.
I
It's
don't
and it's
know.
such a it's an awful feeling to even just say. It's like, why was it weird to like even want to do that? But why
Mhm.
do you have you ever thought about that as to why that would be?
I um I don't know. Yeah. Well, I know my sister. Um they never were touchy touchy. As well, I mean, again, that's from our parents. So
Yeah, yeah.
I think it just wasn't normalized. I think that's what it is. It just wasn't normalized in the house.
Yeah, but you see, so when I watch these Filipino dramas, right? And you see like the provinces and everything like that, and they'll kiss their child before they go to school, that long walk
Yeah.
to school in the province, but then or you give them a hug, and there'd be a lot of, I love you, son, I want you to have this, but then it didn't really translate over. And I don't know if that's more of like an economical type of hierarchy, sort of like,
Uh-huh.
the more well-off folks are the ones that say that a lot more, just say I love you and everything. It's more I guess that's a more westernized type of emotional relationship. It's more, is it more traditional Asian, you know study hard
Yeah.
and make me proud with, without having me to tell you type of a thing. You already should know that I
The
love you because you've got
yeah,
a roof.
it was a pressure. Like, I brought you to life. You better do this right because now I work for you to live,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and every day was like, and we work every day for you. It was like, I gotta, yeah,
mm-hmm,
I gotta do, and then, but then you're never told, live your dream, be who you want to be, like who you want to be is okay. Like,
mm-hmm,
you're never told, you're just like, and then you don't, and then I end up having a pressure of like, I can't disappoint them now. They brought me here, they worked for me, and then I fail because, or what I think is failing, because it's not what they were telling me I should have
mm-hmm,
done, which is where now in my 30s I'm able to have a therapist and figure out that, oh, I'm able to succeed in my own terms.
mm-hmm.
That's something I unfortunately had to learn versus being told that, right? Like, I watched some of my more westernized friends, and the good ones have parents who do that. They're just like, hey, it's not that you're out the house at 18, but at 18 you can make your own decisions and get things you want to get and go forward with what you think you want to be, which is a lot different than than what I went through. So,
So there is, so from what I'm hearing from you also, is there is this thing that exists of like, I think it's called debt of gratitude,
yes.
to
Hmm.
where I brought you to earth, I brought you here. I
I
worked
wasn't a
so hard,
blessing. I was a
sacrificed.
burden. It feels like you're a
Yeah.
burden,
And
you
then now
know.
you have to work your butt off for the, for the remainder of your life. And then you also have to take care of me. There's a lot of Filipino, there's a lot of just trauma and psychology around that, to where there's a lot of Filipino, the next generation, to where it's like, you now have to return this, you're in debt now from what all the sacrifices that I have. Now you're going to take care of us until we're old. And, they're, and it's, I have I believe in that because, they did give us a lot of sacrifices and everything like that. And I do believe that there should be that gratitude, to where once, they are up there in age. I have such a hard time having that thought in my head of putting my parents into a home or something like that. Although I'm not even remotely close with them right now. They're in good shape right now, to and mentally and health wise, so that they're traveling, going back and forth from here in the Philippines. But then I think it gets to that point to where there is kind of this, I'm hoping on their end, and I think they've expressed it, to where they don't really feel like we would have to take care of them as they get up in their in age. But there's a vast amount of Filipino parents that actually have that. I think it's more of a Philippines thing. But does that exist across also in Vietnam, to where it's like, yeah, as a family, we're gonna have to take care of each other, and then the next generation, rinse, repeat
Oh
until.
yeah, that's pretty typical, but I'm who I am, so um it's typical that in the Vietnamese community, you're going to need to be with your mom moves in, or
Hmm.
you take care of them till the end. But my mom was raised by nannies, so I told her, I was like, look, I don't want to see you in that light. You don't want me to see you in that light. I'm gonna hire somebody. It's gonna be great. So I would have her live with me, but I will have
Hmm.
hired help there. I didn't have children. I have plenty of time to save and I can take
Hmm.
care of that. Like she wouldn't be in a home unless she goes to a place in her head where she can't be, like if she's not mentally there,
Hmm.
then that would be another situation. But if it came when it comes down to it, because that's what would happen is I know it's gonna happen at one point, I'm going to have to hire somebody, which is fine. And the person that you hire can go on vacation with you guys and everything. They just make sure that the parent is in good health and they move around and taken care of while you enjoy your parents. So
Yeah.
just like a nanny, it's kind of great.
I definitely think that that should be a much more accepted and a more sought out type of a profession. You know, just the in-home care type of a thing. I mean, I understand that there's these home care, not even facilities or home care, like private home cares. My aunt has a private home care to where
Hmm.
I think she takes care of like three or four. I mean, that's always been
Yeah.
her passion. She made, a good life being around that, good career and doing that. I don't see really anything wrong. Like you said, I mean, if you really want to be there for them, but you can't, and yet you're not able to sacrifice your time throughout, you're still fulfilling that, not necessarily obligation, but that want to be there for them. Although I
Hmm.
don't know anything about, I'd
Hmm.
never pursued the medical career. Maybe that's why they wanted me to pursue a medical career so they can,
Yeah,
I can do work later on. But I think that's a decent exchange. It's like
I think so.
I'll have somebody there for you. I'm hoping that that ends up boosting, like that type of a field
Yeah.
boost to where you're a certified home nurse or home,
Hmm.
what would you call that? I don't even know.
Yeah, an in-home care
Assistant,
person.
in-home care person. Yeah.
And I mean, it wouldn't be every day. It could be 3, 4 times a week.
Hmm.
My parents
Yeah.
would live in my home. It's just I would make sure that they're comfortable at the same time, and I'm comfortable because I still have to work because now I have to pay for them. And it's I think it's a fair exchange because even if I had children, that's what I would do is get nannies because that's who would learn how, pee and poo and stuff. I don't have to do that. I can love my kid, but I don't have to, you know, I don't have to wash its butts and stuff. So
Yeah, you're good. Okay, that's,
that's
yeah. I don't know about that one, Joel.
why.
Well,
Well, then again,
only
I don't have
because
kids
I've
now. So
only yeah, I know. But only because I've already gone through it. Maybe if that was an option. Hmm.
yeah, that every morning it's already like woken up and taken care of. You just have to be there to teach it,
Hmm.
love it, and then every time it poops and pees, that's not something you have to care for. Someone does that part and teaches them how to walk and poop and pee on their own.
Is there like is that even a thing to
That's a
where, is
nanny.
that more of an au pair or that's more nanny? My cousin
Oh
does
yeah,
that
it would
in
be an au pair
Singapore.
too.
Au
A
pair
lot
also.
of at that, if you're taking care of a tiny baby, usually the family would hire you as an au pair.
Yeah.
But as the kid gets older, then you don't need them as much. Then it's actually cheaper than getting daycare for a lot of people.
Oh,
So
daycare is ridiculous. I mean, I
mhm.
mean, you're basically, that's your entire check,
Imagine you have
sometimes
three
for some people.
kids.
Yeah.
You could pay
Yeah.
one paycheck for 3 kids, or you have to pay 3 kids at
But
daycare.
I will say though, if I was given the opportunity, let's say that was an opportunity right now to where it was presented to me to redo things, I don't know if I would go that route. Mainly because a lot of my connections and a lot of my memories, that in that true connection and building with my kids, I had that, even though if it was exhausting, sat there and like I got peed on so many darn times, even like, and all over the place, and I've had to clean up blown up diapers and everything. It was just still things that I was like, you know what, it's like it was my responsibility to bring them into the life. I'm going to take that responsibility and just be responsible for what I'm doing during that time. I understand that there's also, you can definitely make a case like, you might not be the best person. The next person might not be the best person raising a child. I think that's a very strong statement for a lot of people that have kids in that right now, that You can see they're not doing a great job at all in doing it. Maybe we can subsidize that so we can have better,
There's a
better
lot of
raised kids
there's a lot of
for
people
those that don't know how to do it.
that get angry when when their kid poops or pees out of
Oh
nowhere
yeah.
when it
Oh
you
yeah.
know and that animosity is energy that the child can feel. And I think that it's great if little Susie over there can pick up the kid and go take care of the poopy stuff, because then I
Poopies.
wouldn't have to bring that anger on them. And then I could just go back to loving it again.
Okay. Yeah, I will very much agree that that is necessary, and I think it should. I mean, there should definitely be a push for that for families, because there's a lot of struggling families right now. I mean, I
Hmm.
think some of the anger and frustrations is because they're so dang tired that they got to wake up,
Hmm.
at a certain time in the evening, and because they got to be at work the next day, and after they work the long hard shift. I think there should definitely be relief if you can afford it, and if you feel like that's the best situation for. I think that's definitely the case. And or also if you don't feel like you're kind of just not that type to
Yeah,
picking
exactly.
up the poopy,
If that's not part of you, you need to be
then
real with
yeah,
that.
America's great. America's
Yeah,
great. We should
yeah,
have it.
opportunity.
Yeah, and in a state to where, in a state of affairs right now, to where people are looking for jobs, fulfilling jobs, other than just working some 9 to 5 at a Walmart, or not that's a bad thing, but if that's not your thing, maybe that's another route that you can go with. um One thing I did want to ask, as you were saying something a little bit earlier, I want to bring back to this. I'm wondering if this is also another thing in the Vietnamese culture. There's this there's this thing in the Filipino culture to where somebody, I guess, named it, or it's just recently, to where it was compared to crab mentality. You've heard of that?
Crabs in a bucket.
Yeah, the crab in a bucket, and
Yeah,
crabs in the bucket,
I've
and
been
when
told that about the Filipino community.
yeah. So if for those who I want to sum it up a little bit. It's like, for those who don't know what that is, if you put a bunch of crabs in a bucket, and I guess somebody observed it, um, somebody was watching crabs. So if one starts kind of kind of trying to get out the bucket, and other crabs start seeing them, one will bring them down. And as once that crab is brought down, and it keeps trying and trying and trying, more and more will bring that same crab down. And as it tries more, it'll literally get to the point where they might even kill the crab. And I didn't watch any more beyond that, or read more beyond that. I don't know what the reasoning is behind that, but I don't know. I believe that that's more a just. I think that's a pretty extreme comparison, but I do understand why, because and I don't know why it exists. I think it's more, somebody had mentioned, it was like, yeah, the minority effect, to where you're like, the Philippines has always been just the minority. It's always been conquered. The Spaniards came, and then you had the Japanese, and then the US came over there and helped out. And look, right now you've got China buying out islands and islands, and I mean, Philippines is for sale. A lot of the islands are for sale. I mean, although there's thousands of islands. So it's this minority complex, and you're always trying to scrape up. There's a very small percentage to where there's a lot of wealth, and then there's just a majority there's a lot of poor people there, and there's a lot of homes that are squatters and everything like that. And it's just the mentality of somebody's trying to get out of that bucket. You're trying to pull them down. As it relates to to Seattle, at least, I remember there would be times where there'd be like just for example, the Filipino restaurants. When it would come up, I remember there was a couple in Beacon Hill that was really, really good, and that was kind of just because it was supported by the Strip. A lot of people, if there was a restaurant there, everybody would just go there regardless, because it was just quick Filipino food. There's a big Filipino culture there. But then if another one opens up, there's already this almost immediate type of criticism saying, "Yeah, it's I can cook better than them," or it's like, "Oh yeah, but their so and so is not as good as this," or so on. There's already this mentality to bring people down, right? Is that something that you see in the Vietnamese culture, it almost, I don't know,
Vietnamese people push each other.
it's more
It's push. It's like,
it's more a
yeah, yeah,
race, or
but
like it's
it's
more
a toxic it's a toxic success. It's like you better be doing something all the time. Like there's no, especially, I mean, that was my
toxic
family.
success.
I understand there's some people that, you know, that well, they look down on people that are lazy. That was
Hmm.
my upbringing. It was like you need to always be doing something that's good and always be the top, always be reaching for more. Um, and so everything, so if I came to you and I was like, I'm going to open a shop, they would be like, about time, it wouldn't be
Oh,
like,
Jesus.
yeah, things like that. They truly believe in, they say you don't eat the fruit the day you plant the seed.
Hmm.
So, like graduation, opening the shops, having new ideas, those are seeds. Those aren't fruits, you know? And fruits for them is like the fucking new cars and the house and the money and like the family to go with it. Like that's the fruit. And unless you have that. So
Hmm.
it's they definitely, so it's weird. It's like yeah, it's almost like a given. When you're trying to succeed, it's a given compared to like
Yeah.
crabs in a bucket where someone's like, hey, I have this new idea. And the person might be like, oh, but are you sure that's going to work for you? That means you're going to spend less time with your family, or, that's not really something you encounter. It's more kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
now I have the pressure to finish. So it's a little different. It's not better,
It's
I would
very
say.
different. It's very
Hmm.
different. But and you, like you said, it was toxic success. It's almost like, I think there was one. So back in that same that list, I think that I was telling you earlier, the rankings of most toxic men. I think the least toxic was this girl. I mean, I don't know where. Like I said, I don't know how she came up to with this, but she said the least toxic in her list was the Chinese, mainly because all that we'd want to do is their motivation was making money, and if they don't have enough time to be this and that, is just money driven, right? So, but at the same time, you leave, there's not a lot of time with the family, or there's not a lot of time, a lot of personal time with, with your offsprings and everything like that. But you were just driven financially to just do the best as you can to support, and then that's basically it. It sounds like that's kind of the same, but it's more social. It's
Hmm.
like we as a community need to come through together, and you plant your seeds, like you had said.
Hmm. Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think I can get behind that though.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. Vietnamese people is like, if you fall off, like you lost your job and you can no longer, let's say you were somebody that was always going out and always with the other families and you're always picking
Hmm.
up the bill and stuff, and then one day you can't, you're fucked. Those you can't go back
Hmm.
to those people. You're so
Is there a lower tier one to where it's like, hey, the bill's a little, can you just
no, you stay
like drop
home and you
yourself
make
in
more money,
status?
and so you can come back.
I'll find a new crew. I'd be like, those guys don't spend as much. I don't know. I can't have the crabs and the lobsters anymore that those guys have.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, come on. Yeah. I
yeah.
didn't know that was okay. That's interesting. Okay, so what do you do? What are you guilty of these toxic traits? Like, it's
Oh,
other
me
aside from
personally?
what you've already, yeah. Is it everything?
No, just the oh yeah, actually yeah, I'm a toxic like if you tell me this is what you want, I that's what I heard and that's what I'm gonna keep pushing you towards.
Yeah.
That is a toxic part of toxic success. And then I do definitely try to pay the bill. I also drive. I'm a driver, so I
Yeah, that's
pick you
that's
yeah.
that's
It's I
not
mean,
common. That's
it's but I know I have realized I do it because I want to make sure I leave when I leave. I
mhm.
don't want it to be anybody else's choice. So it's kind of a control thing for me. When I'm like, yeah, let me drive, it's because I want to control what's about to happen.
So you don't mind, I mean, although you would consider it, and I think would your with your feelings about these particular traits, as far as being toxic, would the regular or would the common Vietnamese person feel that that would also be toxic, or would they'd be like, no, that's actually positive? Do you feel you represent that well as far as your feelings towards it?
I think I'm aware of it. I have met people that I talk to about it who are not aware. And
Mm,
I'm like, but you just saw yourself do that. And they're
yeah,
like, I'm
didn't you
just
just pay for
like
the
that.
bill?
Yeah. I'm like, why'd you pay for the bill? And they're like, because I'm nice. They don't want to question it. And
Hmm.
I've met those people, but I mean, I just decided to be aware of it. Like, I
Hmm.
don't have to pay. And if I do, it's because I want to. And also, I don't hang out with as many people as I used to. So like, it's not like picking up the bill is a problem. Like I used to
Hmm.
do that, I don't know, 2, 3 times a week. But now I just don't have the time to even go out.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, I'll tell you, the other one that I think it's almost across the board is like the whole gossiping. And
Oh God,
I
yeah.
think that's all over the board. I think like Filipino women love that, but I even Filipino men love that. I mean, I don't know. Oh, there's Seafood City there in
Hmm.
South Center where you're at. I mean, there's a bunch of like men just sitting in the middle of the place, and before that, they would actually just hang out at, I forget what. There was another area that I mean, they would just hang out wherever, like food banks. They would just sit there and just chill and talk about the neighborhood and their friends. And I don't know if that's considered gossiping, but I mean they're definitely talking about each other and negatively in some light also. And so I
Yeah,
think that's across the board, right? Even with the Vietnamese culture, there's a lot of
yeah.
gossiping,
I
or
mean,
no?
we have the men go to cafes, you know, so they
Yeah.
gamble, they go
Hmm.
to casinos, but they don't. Yeah, no. You know what? They support each other in the terrible hobbies they do, but I don't think they talk shit about each other.
Hmm.
And the women, it's all toxic success all around. Like if you're hanging out with a bunch
Jeez.
those women is in that in that category of women. So you you show off to them.
But is it so I have a friend that I forget, what the culture is, the nationality is that he was talking about, but there was more of a pissing contest whenever people get together. It's like, oh, look what I got. I bought this,
Hmm.
$5,000. Is
Hmm.
that what that is? Is
Seems
it
like it. Yeah,
more of a pissing contest? And
yeah.
I'm
It's a
talking about in the
pissing
Vietnamese
contest.
culture. Is it kind of like when they
Yeah.
get together, it's like, oh, look, I opened up another laundromat. It's like, what do
That's
you?
pretty
It's like,
much because the thing is when you
ah,
get there, when you get there, the vibe isn't like, look what I got. It's more like you should be happy for me, and it's like a
oh,
joyous time, and it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Okay.
while you're setting aside all the feelings and emotions, you're just faking it. And yeah, and
Hmm.
that's so yeah, I say it's what it seems because when you're there, it won't seem that way, and then you
Hmm.
leave, and you're like, hey.
You walked away
So
like, hold on, what was that
yeah,
conversation about that I was really feeling good about? And why am I so full and my pockets are still full because I didn't spend anything?
yeah, and then you're like, what does he mean by that? And then there starts, or like you'll see them have the same cars, and then you're like, oh, that guy got the new Lexus, so I have to
Hmm.
go get the new Lexus in the same
Oh,
color.
I can see
Yeah,
how that could be. Okay. Okay.
that's a big. I mean, that goes with a lot of people, but Vietnamese people are. I've seen it where I'm like, don't you guys see it's the same car? Like, why don't you guys pick something else? Like.
Very, very interesting, huh? I'm gonna have to have somebody else. I'm actually speaking to a couple episodes from now. Um, I think a couple episodes from now, I'm having another. I think she is Viet. Um, family
Mhm.
came from. I think her father came with like a business, like I think a machinist business type of a thing, to where, I've they were pretty well off, and she was also, she came up and was very, very smart and went through all the channels and the avenues and everything, and now she's playing a huge part in the business. I want to see if that's the case. I'm definitely going to ask that particular part,
Mhm.
but yeah, I want to see if that's a little bit more. This I've never really bothered to ask. It's one of those things to where I know very hardworking, community, very hardworking ethnicity. There's always something up, and they just keep plugging away. So I'm definitely interested in that particular area. It is a lot more. It is a lot more focused and a lot more driven in entrepreneurship that I've noticed also. I'm very intrigued. Very intrigued. Thanks for opening that up to us. Um,
Yeah.
I'm looking at the time. We're kind of close to where we usually are at. So I'm thankful that you decided to sit down with me. I know we could have sat this week out without E, but E missed out. I think he would have had some insights here, but you've definitely filled in very, very nicely. Um, Again, we'll have to do this again.
Yep.
I'm planning a four camera pod coming up. I'll have you and another lady on, and then I'll have me and maybe
Nice.
another fella on. We'll go at it and we'll figure out what's wrong with what's going on in the communities and in socials right now. But other than that, I again thank you so much.
Yeah, for
You want to
sure.
plug
Thanks for having
anything?
me
You
always.
got you got so much stuff going on. You want to plug anything?
What do you mean?
You have so much. You have your socials. You have all these little side projects. You
Oh
got passion
yeah.
projects. What you got?
Yeah. I'm starting to use I'm doing a lot of doodling, so I have a YouTube for doodling. I just believe in content that's more calming for the mind and more uh, active. Like I want people to do more. That it's
Hmm.
this what the content we have right now is just to watch and like mentally understand. But I more satisfaction and just things that people can relate to, but not be stimulated by all the time. So I do have a YouTube called Doodle Zens, and then I have my IG, which is Joy Gauthier, of course, where I just have my traveling and fun life, really.
Yeah, no, you run a very entertaining channel. I'll make sure that everybody sees that on the screen once again. I know we always try to put your information out there. I saw the dueling. I think we mentioned that a couple episodes back. Very interesting stuff, and it's like you said, it's very calming. I've seen one of the videos that you did. It was the one where you come from the middle and you just keep coming out.
Hmm.
I could. I almost want to just have my kids sit there and watch it. I might
Hmm.
have to do that. But yeah, I'll let you know how
Yeah,
that goes.
for sure.
Yeah, cool, very cool. Thank you, Joelle. Let's see. Oh, everyone, like and subscribe. Always forget to
Yes.
ask you guys to do that. We are actually trying to push as much as we can, get our numbers up. It's starting to get a little serious, so let's go ahead and jump on. Just click that subscribe button, and we'll keep putting out content for you. We have a lot coming up. All right. Thank you. Have a good weekend.